Hi, this is Mark Sanborn in my office in Lone Tree, Colorado. There are very few things in global business least understood than culture. Not only do executives have a hard time defining what it is, they have an even harder time creating it, changing it, or maintaining it. In the next 5 or 6 minutes, I'm going to give you a very concise and simple definition of culture and 5 levers that you can use to create and change it. Now keep in mind, in 5 or 6 minutes you won't master culture, but you will have the framework that you need to get your hands wrapped around it, and you'll have some tools that'll help you be a more effective creator of culture. So what is culture? I've heard it defined in any number of ways, from the way we do things around here to the atmosphere of an organization, and those are fine definitions. But I'm a pragmatist. I believe that culture is everything we think and believe that results in what we do and achieve. Let me say that again. It's everything that we think, which is intellectual, and believe, which is emotional. Both are important. It's not enough to have the sterile emotionality of work. People have to have their heart as well as their heads invested in a healthy culture. Those two things determine what we do, and I might add how well we do them, and ultimately the results that we achieve. So how do you design for culture? See, that's the problem. Most leaders have culture by default, not culture by define. Here are the 5 levers. The first is your philosophy. That's your vision, your missions, your values, your goals, all the things that you have built your organization around. Even if you have those things, there are 2 problems. Number 1, most team members neither know what they are nor necessarily are committed to them. And number 2, the problem that you have is that they're often very abstract. They aren't practical. You aren't able to implement them and act on them. So begin by looking at and sharing your philosophy. The second lever you've got is hiring and firing, opposite ends of the same spectrum. Here's the big idea. Hire for culture, not just function. If you have 3 candidates for a position, don't just look at who has the best skills, but look at who has the best skills and the best fit with the organizational culture that you desire. In the same way, don't let culture killers stay on your team. If they're underperforming and or if they aren't healthy and contributing to the culture of your organization, that's a reason to consider letting them go. So the second lever you've got is hiring and firing. The third is education and training. Education is intellectual, it's about knowledge. Training is skill-based. People need both. If you go back to your philosophy, for people to really understand it, they have to be educated. You have to share information and be open in your communication. So make sure not only that people have the skills they need for a successful culture, but the understanding as well. The fourth are incentives and reinforcements. You know, there's an old adage, and it's a bit corny, but it's true. What gets rewarded gets done. If you reward the wrong things, you'll have the wrong kind of culture. If you espouse a democracy and participative environment, and yet you reward the games players and those who get very political, you have undermined what it is you're trying to achieve for your culture. What you incentivize people with and how you reinforce those who buy in and support the culture is critical. And finally, last but not least, communications and meetings. We spend about 1/3 of our day in meetings, depending what profession you're in. So those meetings should be used to reiterate, to repeat, to emphasize, and to reinforce the important things that people need to know about the culture, the work to be done, your aspirations, and why they're doing it. All communication should be culture consistent, but meetings are especially important. Using those 5 levers, I would reverse engineer and ask yourself, if we could start with a blank piece of paper, how would we design our culture? What would it look like? What would it be like? What would it be like to work here? And then use those 5 levers that I've just explained to create that culture. This is Mark Sanborn, marksanborn.com, Denver, Colorado.